Arbor Day Square, written by Kathryn O. Galbraith, illustrated by Sid Moore. We're going to jump to the back of the book because there's an author's note that gives us a little history about Arbor Day. And then we'll read the story. Author's note. Arbor Day, founded by J. Sterling Morton, was first celebrated in the new state of Nebraska on April 10, 1872. In 1854, the young journalist and his bride left the forested state of Michigan and moved to the plains of what was then called the Nebraska Territory. There in Nebraska City, he soon became the editor of the territory's first newspaper. Later, he devoted himself to politics. In 1872, Morton proposed to the State Board of Agriculture that a day be set aside to plant trees. Morton encouraged his fellow citizens as well as civic organizations and school children to participate. People were eager to join in. Trees were needed as building materials, as fuel to heat their homes, and as windbreaks for the new farms. They were also needed for their shade and their beauty. The day was a huge success. Over 1 million trees were planted throughout the state on that first Arbor Day. 2 years later, Governor Robert W. Furness issued a proclamation asking the citizens to observe Arbor Day and then in 1885, Arbor Day became a legal holiday in Nebraska. Today, Arbor Day is celebrated in all 50 states. The most common date is the last Friday in April, but it can vary from state to state, depending on the best planting time for the trees. The idea of Arbor Day has spread beyond our borders and is also celebrated in many countries around the world, including Australia, New Zealand, Canada, Brazil, China, Germany, India, Mexico, and England. If you would like to know more about the history of Arbor Day and the date it is celebrated in your state, please check the website of the National Arbor Day Foundation, www.arborday.org. Well, let's jump into our story. Arbor Day Square. If you're reading this story along with me, probably you're someone who likes trees. So we'll learn some names of trees and we'll do a little bit of traveling through time from this old prairie town to present day. It's lovely how stories can take us places. Katie takes a deep breath. Everything smells new, she tells Papa, and everything does. Their prairie town is growing week by week. Now they have stores with glass windows, a church with a steeple, and a schoolhouse with desks for all 17 students to sit in long rows. Every week, the train brings more people who are eager for land. The train also brings more lumber and logs for houses, stables, fences, and barns. Papa helps pace out the town square. It will be a gathering place for concerts and socials and speeches like the square back east, the ones back home, the ones they remember as children. Only one thing is missing. Katie and the children know it. The townsfolk and farmers know it too. What's missing? Oh, there are no trees on the prairie. No trees for climbing or for shade. No trees for fruit or warm winter fires. No trees for birds or for beauty. Do you see Katie and her doll and her papa? At the town meeting, everyone agrees that a proper town, their town, needs trees. Mrs. Johansson passes a basket. Precious nickels, dimes, and quarters tumble in. Jingle, jingle, clank, clink. Katy adds her own 6 pennies and Papa's silver dollar. When the basket is heavy, Mr. Klein taps out an order over the telegraph lines. Send 15 trees. Days tick by, sunny days, rainy days, windy days, when dust devils dance in the road. At last, the telegraph lines tap back. Trees are coming. Doo-woo! When the train pulls in, folks hurry to the depot. Babies and dogs come too. Katy skips beside Papa, swinging her bucket and dolly. They're here! Papa, Mr. Zimmerman, and all the O'Briens carefully unload the boxcar, counting as they go. 13, 14, 15. Katy stares at the saplings, spindly and green. They're too little. Don't worry, they'll grow, promises Papa. But Katy isn't sure. Katy and Papa follow the parade of trees to the new town square. Papa and Mr. Carter dig 3 holes. Dig, swing, scoop. Dig, swing, scoop. Papa plants 3 small maples. Let me help, Katy says. She gently pats the soil down around each baby tree. Under the warm sun, more trees spring up. Someday, these oaks will shade the bench, Papa says, and there, the elm tree will shelter the bandstand. But Katy isn't sure. Neighbors plant 4 maples near the church, 1 apple tree on the corner, and 3 chestnut trees in the dusty schoolyard. Danny O'Brien leads the bucket brigade. Katy lugs her bucket too. Cool drinks for thirsty trees and dogs. Did you notice the bucket brigade in the illustration? How people are passing, a line of people are passing buckets from one person to the next to get it from the water source to the trees. In a quiet corner of the square, Papa and Katy dig a hole together. Here they plant a flowering dogwood in memory of Mama. Katy touches the tender leaves. It is very little, but now this is our special tree, she whispers. Papa hugs her. Yes, our very special tree. As the sun begins to set, the square bristles and blooms with green. Papa and Katy spread their blanket next to Mama's tree. Katy peeks into the basket. There's plenty of food to share with friends and dogs and Dolly. Do you think Dolly's going to eat a lot of that food? As old Doc fiddles at the moon, neighbors gather their children and dogs and wave goodnight. Let's do this again next year. And they do. Year after year, they gather in the square for another Arbor Day, a tree planting day, a holiday. Carrying shovels, rakes, and hoes, Katy and Papa help plant trees throughout the town. Trees for climbing and for shade, trees for fruit and warm winter fires, trees for birds and for beauty. And every year, Papa laughs and tells Katy, "Don't worry, honey, they'll grow." And every year they do. Did you notice the changes already taking place? The trees by the schoolhouse? Even the people are changing a little bit. Look at Katy and her papa. It's another Arbor Day. Neighbors, kids, and dogs hurry to the square. Here come Katie and Danny O'Brien with their Megan Ann. Katie's papa, now a grandpa, holds one of Megan's hands. Did you spot those characters in the illustration? Right there. In the square lies a small row of saplings, spindly and green. Katie smiles. One day that willow will sweep the pond, she says, and there the cedar will sweep the sky. Megan shakes her head and Katie laughs. Don't worry, honey. They'll grow. Now, let's find your grandma tree. Megan runs across the square. Her family follows just behind. There, Katie spreads out their blanket under the blooming dogwood tree. Robins rustle in the leaves. Sparrows chirp and flutter. Megan peeks into the basket. There's plenty of food to share with friends and dogs and bear. When the moon rises, silver and round, neighbors gather up children and grandchildren and whistle for the dogs. See you here again next year, they call. And they do. Celebrating families, trees, and neighbors, year after year, and the year after that. Did you notice some changes that have happened since the very beginning of the story, when Katie and her papa first start helping with the planting of trees? How many years do you think have gone by? I hope you enjoyed this story, Arbor Day Square, and hopefully you'll go find a tree to enjoy its shade or its beauty, maybe some fruit from it. Maybe you'll draw a picture of your tree or write a story about it.